Ugh. Okay. First of all, Happy New Year's to everyone. I hope you brought it in safely. I hope it was good for you. And here we are, 2025, a new year on the horizon. Definitely first, a lot of gratitude for being here. There is people who did not make it to this year, so allow yourself a second to really sit with the fact that you're getting another opportunity. It's the same thing as getting another day to wake up. You got another opportunity. What I want to discuss today is some reflections on 2024 and kind of the journey thus far. And maybe you'll see some parallels in that. And going into 2025, thinking about how do we close the gap or the perceived gap between where we are and where we would like to be, the things we would like to do, maybe even the things that we would like to have. But ultimately thinking, okay, I have some idea, I have a vision, I have a dream, I have goals, I maybe even have a plan, I maybe have even written it down, but I'm still feeling like this illusion of the gap is still present, and I'm on the other side. How I've heard it articulated before by mentors or people I follow, or even my good friend, is this concept of the bridge. And the concept of the bridge is what I'm talking about, to the extent of, you see where you're trying to go. It's an idea, it's a dream, it's a goal, and you can see it on the other side. But here you are on the starting point, or the opposite side of the bridge. And to start with some reflections on 2024, and if you hear the plane in the background, I'm near the airport, so I apologize. I'm gonna get some mics, so we won't have to worry about that when I'm outside. But thinking about 2024, if you haven't already, I think within the next 24 hours, you should definitely take some inventory. First, take some inventory of where you missed the mark. What mishaps by your own thoughts, emotions, and then actions, and what those produced in your life in your 2024. Take some inventory of those things. For me, one of the bigger lessons that I learned last year was, coming to this final conclusion, at least within myself. And I only say final because it just seems as if it's something that has been accumulating as far as an understanding towards myself and my position with where I'm at. Not necessarily final as in, you stop learning or I figured it out, as much as it's this conclusion of understanding that there is a small voice, which, sometimes can be referred to as intuition, inside of us. And it picks at us in the right way, and it nudges you in the right way, and it's always talking to you. And in the midst of that small, quiet inner voice, that intuition that talks to you, there's all the other voices in your mind, on any end of the spectrum or the hierarchy, from your highest self and the best that you could be, all the way down to the versions that maybe are so low that those are things that are even hard for you to speak out loud or discuss with another person. The stuff that you try to, maybe push into a dark corner. So there's all these different voices that go on within our mind. And in the midst of that, that is always occurring every single day. And as much as it feels like the low frequency, we could call it, or those things that you have pushed to the side, or those things that are pretty much in the realm of shame and guilt and fears and doubts and skepticism, seems like those are always pervasive to a certain extent, or they appear to be. Once again, illusions of things, as I said, the illusion of some perceived gap. And they're always picking at you, but at the same time, there is always this small, still, quiet voice of intuition that is letting you know where and what to do. And off top, to start the year, why I said we should take some inventory, because there becomes this thing where, for me, as I said, getting to this conclusion of realizing that voice of intuition, when a man or woman doesn't listen to that voice, they invite a certain sense of suffering that is unnecessary. It's unneeded. And sometimes we have this perception that it is required to get where you want to go. And I do believe that there is obviously challenges, there's difficulties, and there is the full spectrum in any attempt to make yourself a better version, an improved version, to do things you have not done thus far. You get the gamut like you get the gamut in life. You get ups and you get downs. But sometimes we have this perception that there is a certain sense of, or a certain amount of suffering that is required. And it's not necessarily a negative thing, as if there's an opportunity to learn from the suffering. However, it becomes unnecessary when you don't listen to the voice of intuition and you don't listen to your own inner voice. And that was something that I really came to a conclusion with at the end of the year, of looking at my life, looking at my finances, looking at my relationships, looking at the lack of production by myself, as far as, any endeavor that I would like to jump into or have been doing for years. I'm looking back at it and I'm like, man, I'm suffering unnecessarily because I'm not doing the work. And, if you never read The War of Art or Turning Pro, it's by Steven Pressfield. And, the main concept of the book is dealing, particularly in The War of Art, is dealing with the concept of resistance. And, he has this, kind of framework in the book of doing your work and doing the work that is required. And to me, I would even, kind of articulate it in the way that doing the work that the inner voice inclines you to do, it is what is already on your heart. And I got to that point at the end of the year where it was just like, it was heavy. It was very, very heavy, because, it's not that the work was completely ignored or the work wasn't ever done and it is just something that is completely put off. But I think we all have an inclination or understanding that I probably haven't seen the extent to which I could really take this as far as my efforts go, as far as my sense of urgency, my intention, and my willingness to pour into that thing with, energy and attention and effort over a consistent amount of time. So that was a big thing for me. Taking inventory was really actually looking at that, and was just kind of having that hard moment with yourself, to where you realize, like, okay, I am choosing to suffer by prolonging what I'm telling myself is inevitable. And what is inevitable for a lot of us is we understand that it's like the old way, the old world, the setting all of the aspirations down and just attempting to forget about it. We're not going to do that. It's not an option. You have at least gotten to a point of understanding that you're not going to live like that. You're not going to take this life that you get and choose to do that with yourself and with your time. So by prolonging the inevitable, there becomes this process where it's like a purgatory. You almost sit in this space of denying yourself the ability to try, so then you never fail. And because you never fail, you're definitely never gonna win. So that was part of my inventory. So I would encourage everybody, or anyone who watches this, to, if you haven't already, like I said, take the next 24 hours before we start moving and getting things rolling. Just take some inventory, and maybe it'll be something completely different for you. Maybe it is the fact that it is a refinement process for you and fine tuning. You're like, okay, D, I hear you. And I was there at one point, but man, I really did my thing in 2024. Like I really laid foundational framework for myself, and like I'm moving at it. I feel like I'm in a different season. So your inventory may be different, and you may look at it and it may be exactly that, where you're thinking to yourself, like, okay, it's time to refine the process. It is time to get even more clear with the inner voice, with myself, and start to pretty much fine tune what I've been doing to excel at a higher level. Taking the inventory now, while you can, is gonna let you know. It's like a saying that I had heard, and it is two different ones. First, the work works on you more than you work on it, and I think that was Alex Hormozy. And the other one is the work shows us what to work on. And I can't recall where I heard that one from. It might be Pressfield, and maybe it's someone else. But those two concepts, the work works on you more than you work on it, and the work will show you what to work on. So by taking inventory and looking, and this is the thing, that's another concept that I played around with a lot this past year, of this concept of being real. And my immediate inclination is like, hey, when you take inventory, be real with yourself. And I think there is a truth to that, because if you're BSing, you're not truly being honest, or you're avoiding some kind of hard stuff, maybe some of that stuff that you have put off into the darker corner, and you're not addressing that, I would just tell you, don't expect to get the full range of payout, because you haven't taken on the full range of work. You haven't addressed the work that actually needs to be worked on. And everything is connected, so there's correlations in areas that you won't see immediately. And it's like, those correlations, sometimes you're not going to know. Sometimes working on childhood stuff, working on trauma, sometimes that does correlate directly into the tactical work that is required. Sometimes we don't think about it like that. So, be real. But another thing as I was saying, playing around with that concept, don't think you're being real by sitting down and just battering yourself without any acknowledgement of any positivity that you actually did. I promise you, in 2024, you didn't do 365 days, 24 hours every single day of just BSing and negativity. I know you didn't. The ebbs and flows of life don't even work in that way. That is not realistic based off just a universal principle of ebbs and flows, highs and lows, high frequency, low frequency, negative, positive, all the different categories that our physical mind uses to break these things down. So when I say be real to the extent that you address those things that maybe give you a little feeling in the gut. You don't really want to go there. And then also be real with the fact of, wait, these are the things that I already do that I just have to double down on, that maybe double and triple down on. So when you take inventory, just be honest, have grace, but have the grace that is constructive, not the grace that is ignorant to the facts that are at hand, or, at least the facts and the reality that you have created for yourself. Because sometimes that can be just a subjective thing that we try to, what's the truth? What's the facts? What's this, that, and the other? And sometimes it's a lot more dependent on the person and what they've created for themselves, what is in their cipher, what is in their reality. So as you take the inventory, lay it all out. Lay it out, be honest, have grace, but do it with the intention to act on what you're gonna actually write down. And don't just sit there for 30 minutes to an hour and just think about this stuff without giving yourself anything tangible that you can look back at to. Because sometimes we have great insights or great moments of clarity, and sometimes we can slip back into another thought pattern or paradigm very quickly. So definitely write these things down. Write it down as to you taking inventory. And maybe some of you already have. You did that prior to the year starting, and you're looking at your inventory list like, okay, these are the things that need to be adjusted, that need to change. As you do that, like I said, understand that anything that you write down, don't hype yourself up just to not actually act on the thing. So, fully have the intention that what is getting written down will be acted on, and understand that there is a reoccurring cause and effect for what you wrote down, what you act on, and the byproduct of that thing. Then understand something that you're probably already aware of, which is the concept of consistency. Understand that stacking those days is pivotal. That's another thing that I learned from working out. I learned that from the gym, and maybe that's a goal that some people have on their list and adjustment, or in their inventory list they're looking and they're like, okay, can't keep avoiding that. I said this thing last year and I didn't actually make the change, or man, I did it well for 6 months, but there was some months that I was completely off it, and kind of the full different range of what goes on with our day-to-day deposits as far as our body goes and our health. So one thing that I learned from the gym was, it was around the time of 2022. I had told myself, because same thing, it was going into 2022, and I was like kind of doing a similar thing of taking the inventory list, which I think is a natural process at the end of the year. I think people do it. The whole concept of New Year's resolutions is kind of centered around the fact of, what did I do last year and what am I going to change in this next year? And it's probably a whole nother video just to talk about either how people execute on that or why there becomes a disconnect. And each year it is redoing the inventory, redoing a list and a vision board, and doing all these different things. And all these different things are great, but it kind of gets back to the point of all these things, the bottom or root intention of that thing has to be the fact that you're actually going to act on the things that you say. And that's one thing I learned from the gym. Was around that time I told myself, I'm like, okay, I can observe the fact that I have these ups and downs, and I go super hard and then I fall off, and then it'll be August or something, and I'll be ready to get back to it, or maybe it's 3-month period. I just was noticing that about myself as far as the gym went, especially after getting out of being an athlete and having things structured for me, and then having to make that time for myself. But here we are going into 2025, and my body looks completely different than it did at that point. And as I said, there is no way around this concept of something that we know. That's the thing about consistency and discipline, is that you can talk to somebody, and I say this with all due respect, but you understand who you're talking to. Sometimes you can just kind of peep people, or you see how they talk about things or talk about the world. Honestly, you could talk to a person who you deem to be of a low level of understanding. You talk to them about consistency and discipline, they'll understand the concept. It's not that complicated. What does it require to execute is different. That's for a conversation with maybe a different group of people that have done that, have seen what consistency and discipline look like over time. But I started to notice that. I noticed it by the end of 2022, let alone now. But you will see the byproduct from those things that you do consistently. And it's crazy, just like I said, the thoughts that we'll just call them, negative thoughts that seem to be pervasive. It's funny that they even try to hop in the realm with consistency. It's laughable, honestly, it is. It's truly laughable that these thoughts, still attempt to be pervasive, when it's like, if there was a boxing ring and those negative thoughts tried to get in there with consistency, it's laughable. Because the thing is, it's like, time tells. Time will tell. And that consistency over time and the discipline over time, it's going to show. It's going to give you the byproduct. It's going to show you that this is for real. Now, is there sometimes a gap period where you're like, hey, I've been being consistent, I've been being disciplined, I'm not seeing no results change? There are so many different avenues I could go into as to just that in itself. The period in between the materialization or manifestation of an outcome, a byproduct, or a result to your consistency and your discipline, and they vary across endeavors. So in business it looks like one thing, and in business it looks like a million different things for different business people, different entrepreneurs. In artistic endeavors, it looks different ways. It's on different timelines. Excuse me. It's on different timelines. Then for something like the gym, it's different. Some people, they're like, man, I've been going 90 days and I already see the difference. Honestly, if you get 90 days in the gym, you're most likely gonna see a small variation, a small one, but you're gonna see it. So I guess what I'm kind of getting at, and I said this in the last video, but it's like, honestly, these will get more structured and I'm gonna get more in-depth into certain concepts. But honestly, for me right now, I just want to get behind the camera and just practice the skill of just talking and just going off the cusp, just talking and just going around some different concepts and some different points. And I say it to say because I know I'm just rambling, but I'm trying to keep it centered in my mind. So, taking inventory, thinking about 2024, the great things that you did, and then also the disconnects that you had that produced the results that were produced, and then having the intention when you take your inventory to understand that anything that is put down is something that you will have to act on and be consistent and be disciplined. When it gets to March or it gets to April, you're gonna feel that pressure and those inclinations to just fall back into the old way. When it gets to the next 90 days, and sometimes it's in the middle of a 90 days, you don't know. So the thing is understanding that the resistance is going to appear. But the good thing about resistance, in the same way of consistency and discipline, is that you can count on it coming. You don't have to worry about that. It's gonna come. So at least you know it's coming. Secondly, what happens in that gap and on the other side of resistance when you execute properly? And when I say properly, I'm not talking about to other people's definitions or to other people's metrics. I'm talking about for you. What did you get clear on with yourself? Where do you want to be? What is the outcome? What is the desire? What is the wish fulfilled that you have for yourself? You were already clear about that with yourself. So when resistance comes and you act properly in accordance to what you said for yourself, the payout on the other side, like I said, it's not that it maybe it happens immediately, but you checked an unseen box that you don't necessarily understand. You can't see, it's not physical. You did something in your reality that is not always tangible immediately. And sometimes that's the thing with results and outcomes and byproducts, is that, they register well to the physical mind and to our perception in the physical, because it's something tangible that we're like, oh, okay, now I see it. But part of the sauce is being able to detach yourself from the need to get those, we can call them dopamine hits, we can call them affirmations, we can call them, it's just to a certain extent reaffirming something. But when you lessen or you subtract the need for those things, and you know that you can continually just do what you said that you wanted to do, I feel like you charted a new course for yourself. You've set yourself up in a way that is sustainable over time. So, boom, inventory, understanding what comes with taking the inventory, and then after you write the inventory, I would say, my mind is just going to a couple different places, because immediately what I want to say is, after you take the inventory, you also need to understand where you're going. And I think people do actually a pretty good job of that nowadays. Or maybe that's just what is reflected back to me, but I feel like people actually do very well with having an idea, having a goal, having a plan, and like I said, maybe even writing it down. But it's like everybody wants something. Everybody got it. If you talk to somebody, and especially when you kind of frame the conversation around hey, this is where I'm going, this is what I'm trying to do. Usually people will, reflect back a certain their own desires, and they kind of get on that frequency with you, and immediately we can all tell each other, what we want to do and what we're going to become, and when we make it, and all these different conversations that it gets centered into. So I think people do a good job, and that was initially what I was going to say is, take your inventory and understand what comes with that, and then, truly and specifically and with as much detail as you want, be clear and draw up what you would like to see in your 2025, or you would like to see in the next 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, however you want to frame it for yourself. I think the second point, and doing the next point, which is really truly envisioning where you're trying to go, I think sometimes those go hand in hand, because we have such an ability to dream, because the dream is easy. It doesn't cost anything as far as to sit here and think and get hyped up about it. So then it kind of comes back to point two, where it's like the same thing that you understood that, okay, if I take inventory, I'm writing this down for a reason, because I'm not going to be back in 2020 going into 2026 and writing the same stuff down. And honestly, I could tell y'all, like, that's not a good feeling. It's not. And I am saying that out of pure experience. It's nothing I read in a book. It's nothing I heard on a podcast. I know what it feels like to want to make a change in your life, and going even a week, but going 365 days and still looking at your plate and seeing that's still on my plate. I still have to deal with that. Coming from, like I said a couple minutes ago, or a few minutes ago, coming from the place of understanding, I'm not just going to accept the quit or the stepping out the game, or I'm not going to accept that. So that's still on my plate. That's still something that has to be addressed. Man, that is not a good feeling at all. Like, you do not want to go through that. So this taking the inventory, and also the setting the specifics, and allowing yourself to think like, man, this is, like, for me, it's like thinking about, because I make music, and thinking about, like, let me get down specific to the T of what interface that I want, what mic that I want. Okay, how's the room look? Okay, what, maybe picture or poster do I have on the wall? Like, it's okay to be that specific. And actually, it's not just that it's okay. I think it is very important for the connection between what you consciously want and maybe the connect or disconnect in the subconscious mind, so the subconscious mind can take those things in as a reality and produce those things back to you. Now, with both sides of the spectrum, looking backwards and understanding, okay, these are my habits, this is what I've been doing, this is what has to change, or this is what has to be doubled down on. And then also the other side of the spectrum of, where exactly am I going? What does the wish fulfilled look like? There is still this center point of understanding that there is a physical action required to adjust and to acquire. On one side, it is all the things that you desire, and on the other side, it is these things that need to be adjusted. And across the whole spectrum, and in the middle, is all the work that is required to be done. And sometimes we're good at writing things down and making a list and taking inventory, and then sometimes we're great at, desiring all these different things, and, having all these great ambitions. But amongst that whole spectrum is just work. And the work is not a bad thing. And maybe that's even something that can be discussed as far as our relationship to the work. Because I can relate to that. I can definitely relate to the fact that there has been many a time where I can tell that my relationship and my perception towards the work is not conducive. It's not even, like, you ain't even got to the work yet. And you already have a perception or a narrative about the work that is hard, that is difficult, that it takes a long time. A, B, and C, like, you can keep adding on to the list. And the reality is, you're right. It's going to be hard at times. It's going to be difficult at times. And, you know, it's true. Some things that are worth having in stuff that doesn't come and go, things that you actually, you know, changes that you make to yourself, development that you do with yourself, skills that you invest in with yourself, they take time. They take time. So the thing is, it's like, we have these perceptions about the work that is required to either adjust the past or to get to where we want to go. And there can be a discussion about reframing the framework or readjusting the framework towards how you perceive things, and that's going to benefit you. And then there's also this thing where it's like, so what? So what? So what that it is hard and it is difficult and it takes a long time? Because, as it's been said before, not doing what you want to do is hard. Not being able to financially address things how you want to, not being at peace with yourself, not letting the creative spirit really flow, those things are difficult. Time is going to pass anyway. So you're going to spend a lot of time in what I talked about as that illusion, because it's a choice and it's not actually what could occur. But you're going to spend time in unnecessary suffering. So understand that the work is required and you can do it. I think it is very cliche, but maybe sometimes that's just actually what people need to hear. Because maybe sometimes that's what I need to hear. Is it's just like, you can do it though. Before you let your mind run rampant with all the possibilities as to why you can't do it, just understand you can do it. I don't have to get into, oh, other people have already done it, so why can't you do it? Which is a fact. But let's retract it back just to you, just to me. You can do it. Just sit with that for a second. You can do the work that is required. You can do it. Just let that sit home for a second. That part of you already knows that. You know, you're like, I know I could do it. I know I could do it. But there is also a lingering part of you that questions whether or not you could do it. The skepticism is still there. And as you do the work, yes, you remove some of the skepticism, but just understand, whether it's there or in some other world where it's not there and the skepticism isn't there, you can still do it. You can still feel the fear and do it. You can still feel the doubt. You can still have the doubt and do it. There can still be obstacles. Circumstances cannot be great, and you can still do it. Understand that you can do the work that is required of you to get to where you want to go. This gets me to another point of, when I'm talking about intuition and the small inner voice, in my perception, I'm not here to debate. In my perception, what has been productive for me, which has been a place of peace for me, is understanding that intuition is your direct line with what we come from. Source. I could go geographically 1,000 miles. I could go geographically 6,000 miles across the world. Somebody gonna have a different name for it. They gonna call it something different. They gonna have a different historical story for it. They gonna tell you this is the way. I don't know about all them other ways, but this is the way. It's source. And intuition is always your direct line. And I would even go further to say, this rock, this view, all this, I'm always in direct interaction with source. There's nothing that is outside of source. Maybe a conversation for a different time. But your intuition is your direct line to source. So what I wanted to bring up is the fact that because you have the desire is a clear indication and is the truth of all truths that you can do it. Like I said, before you add all this other, oh, well, can I do it to that level? And can I do it for that long? And I did it once, but can I do it again? And all those different things are of just the physical mind and how the physical mind, it computes. It's trying to always solve a problem and find a new problem to solve and create a new problem to solve. Like I said, retract back to yourself. Go within and understand that I'm saying you can do it, whatever those things are, and maybe you have a few things on your list, but just know you can do that thing purely because you want to, and for no other reason outside truly of that. But in addition with this thing of, it's like, wait, why did the desire even get put on my heart in the first place? That was another thing that in the past few weeks, I had a moment of, just to be frank and honest, like I'm emotional. I'm crying. I'm sitting at the park, and I'm like, just being honest. I'm like, Source, I need you to talk to me right now. Like, I need some clarity for real. And as I'm sitting there, I'm having a conversation with myself, and one of the things that comes to me is this point of me feeling like, and like I said, I'm not here for the debate. I'm not here for what you think is true or this, that, or the other. I'm just telling you my experience. But my experience is the fact of, I feel like Source is talking to me and is just telling me, like, D, I don't put things on people's heart to mess around with them. I don't play games like that. I don't play the game of, let me put it on your heart and let me give you desires just for the fact that it can't actually exist. It already exists. I've seen it happen. It's like it says in the word of understanding that, and I don't know the verse, but I know for the plans, I know the plans that I have for you, plans to prosper. So understand that every single person that views this video, if it's one person or if it's 5 people, the 6 of us or the 2 of us are sitting here and we have desires on our heart, and it has to be a clarity to understand that that got put there for a reason. And because it's there, you can do the work. You can get it done, and you can live in that desire. Like I said, it already exists. So, understand that and sit with that as you're taking inventory and you're being true with yourself and honest with yourself, and understanding that the work is an unavoidable truth, and it is an unavoidable fun as well. Like, you look back at things that were just like kind of tumultuous and rough at certain times. Like, I can think back to last year when really my best friend had created one avenue for us to get paid, and at the time, even though I could go get a job at any time, that was the one avenue we could get paid. And there was days where we were doing stuff that just sucked, like moving rock. Like, we were making jokes that it was Hebrew work and it was Egyptian work, and like, we just making jokes because it sucks, and we just trying to laugh in the moment. But I look back at that, and not only is it powerful to me, but I can see that it's like, man, not only were we capable, man, that meant something to me. The work was unavoidable, but the work, looking back on it, it was beautiful. It sucked, but it was beautiful at the same time. I wasn't calling it beautiful when I was moving them rocks, that's for damn sure. But as I look back at it, it looks different in hindsight. So understand that the work is unavoidable, but man, the work is just, it changes you and it evolves you in a way that sometimes you don't see when you're doing it immediately. You don't really get the full lesson sometimes until you look back at things. So it's cool. Understand that, the hours required are probably far more than you understand. The time it takes is probably, it might be longer. It might be longer. And like I said, sometimes that's just our human need for the affirmation and the results to just be a thing that happens so quick. But you are your result, and you changing and you improving every day, and a lot of the results you don't see. You're not always gonna see them immediately, but I just want to let you know that it's not just that you're capable, it's that you're necessary. Each one of us, like, I'm seeing all these cars drive by, planes flying overhead, hundreds of thousands of people just looking at this downtown area. And the thing is, it's like we struggle so much with the idea of whether or not we're capable and whether or not we can. And it's, like I said, some of it is just laughable because Source is looking at us like, you questioning whether you're capable, and I know you're necessary. We on two different frequencies, and we gotta align. We gotta get on the same frequency. So understand that, man. I know we gonna have a year, man. And I don't know if it's gonna look like all the results and all the byproducts, and I don't know. I'm writing that down. I'm getting ready for it. I'm preparing myself. I'm excited for it. But I know we're gonna have a year because the work and the enjoyment in the process can just be that, man. It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be difficult. I know I'm gonna shed some tears, and I know I'm gonna laugh. So I'm gonna get the full experience. But I'm only, like, I was walking over here and I really didn't even know what I wanted to talk about, because, obviously it's like, for me, it's like, I don't really like going to the studio and running through a bunch of beats and sitting there. For one, how sometimes, like, especially when I'm going to a studio that I'm paying for, I don't got the time for that. I don't got the time to be in there trying to come up with an idea. So I like to come, like Wayne said, like ammos, clips. Like, I'm ready. I'm coming with some. I got the beat picked out. The song is written. Like, it's time. I'm ready to go. And I was kind of thinking about that to myself. Like, okay, I got to treat the video stuff the same exact way. I can't, just get on the phone, and as I continue to go through it, I can't just ramble. I have to get more refined, so I need to go ahead and storyboard and do all the things that I already know and I've seen other people do, and have the concepts and the ideas ready to go. But like I said, starting videos, I really just want to get behind the camera. But I lost my train of thought. Oh yeah. So I'm walking over here, and that was kind of just what was on my heart. I'm just thinking about stuff I want to talk about, and I'm like, man, I have no clue right now. I have no clue, but universe, just speak through me. I honestly could care less who watches the video to the extent of how many viewers or any of that. I just want the fact that because I have been blessed and benefited so much from watching other people's videos and podcasts and listening to other people's music, that it's like, my biggest hope is that, you know, I say just something that helps somebody or clicks with somebody where it's like, shit, they can, even if they forget it, but if it even helped them today, then I think it was good to get behind the camera. It was good to at least do it. So, you know, just kind of reviewing things, you know, look back at your 2024 and be proud of the whole experience. Be proud that it's hard to be proud of failure. I'll admit that, but it's like, be proud that when you respond to failure and you take the lessons that failure gives, failure means something. Failure it can't even be quantified in the value. So even though some of that shit sucked and there was ups and downs, man, take it all in. Take the inventory, look at it, and just, you know, be clear about how full of an experience last year was. And write down where you're going and be clear about where you're going and understand to adjust and to change and to become better and to get to where you're trying to go. Accept in your heart and in your soul that each day is a new day that requires the work. Yesterday is yesterday. You may have done the work yesterday, but when that sun goes up and it comes down, there's zeros on the scoreboard. So just embrace that fact. It's okay. And I just wanted to say, like, I know you can do it, man. I know you can do the work. I know you're so much greater than you understand. And I know you are the greatness that you see in yourself, that you do understand and you do see, even if it's just a shed, even if it's just a speck, and it just comes and goes, and then it's all the other stuff that the world puts onto us. Man, that small inner voice of intuition, listen to that. Let that be your guidance. Let your connection, and it's different for all of us. What I'm describing in intuition, sometimes for another person, that is their connection to, you know, peace be upon him, the prophet. Sometimes it's Jesus Christ. Sometimes it's whatever form it comes in. But if that's what's clear for you, then just be clear with yourself and rock with that and listen and understand that what you see in the prophet and what you see in the Christ and what you see in all these different things, they are just a reflection in the consciousness of what already exists within you, and that what is put onto your heart was meant to be put onto your heart. It can be what we call the most moral things, and it can be the things that, you know, seem so materialistic. It could be the fact that you want to be at the soup kitchen, and for another person, they want to sit in a Ferrari, and maybe that person is the same person. But just trust the fact that if you desire the thing and it comes from that place of truth within you, just trust it. Let's not be at the end of this year just having so much under the surface that isn't being acted upon and isn't being lived out, because there's no reason for you to not live it out every single day. So, you know, for whoever does watch this, if you got anything out of the video, man, I'm not tripping off, you know, the views or boosting anything. But if you did get anything, let me know. Let me know, and definitely leave me recommendations. Let me know where I need to improve. Like I said, if the concepts need to be more tailored and specific, which I'm gonna do anyway, because there's a lot of things that I think I speak on that need to be refined more in depth for maybe people who aren't as familiar with it. Just let me know. Also, if you think the video was trash, just let me know, but let me know like what could be adjusted in your opinion. Don't just tell me it's trash and not help me get better. Outside of that, man, win the day. Just win the day. It's only coming one day at a time. The 365 days doesn't happen in one moment, but when you get to the end of it, it feels like a flash. So just focus on one day. Focus on the work that is at hand. You can do it. Yeah, leave a comment, let me know. I'm right here with you. Tap in with me. I don't know if you can write messages on YouTube, so I'll get something cooked up where we could have conversations if anybody wants that. But have a great day, y'all.